All right, we're live, brother. What's going on?
Let's see. Let me record this. Record on computer. What's going on is it's Thursday. It is October 15th. So we were halfway through October, which is kind of amazing. It's been 7 months since the stay-at-home order. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about it. I mean, like I trip out every single time because I still remember clear as day. March 15th hit and that stay-at-home order took place, and we were going, all right, 2 weeks. We could do 2 weeks. And then
2 weeks.
April hit, and then May seemed like it was such a definitive kind of like we're gonna.
Well, it was definitive because remember they gave us a half second to be open in June. So, like May was critical because when June came around, we were able to open up for a minute.
Yeah. But now we're in October, man. We're October and we're still trucking along. So
what I think is a shame is the fact that the kids don't get to trick or treat this year. Are you guys doing it in your neighborhood or what's going on? Because technically, I think you're not, nothing's supposed to happen.
No, we're not doing anything in our neighborhood. We've got some tickets and we're going to do like a carpool kind of thing where you go through and it's like a cool little jack-o'-lantern kind of display that they have out in Calabasas. So we're going to be doing that this year. We got tickets for it. We're going to be inside the car. It's going to be great. And, it's a different experience. And I think I'm always cool with different experiences. So I think the kids will still be able to get what they get out of Halloween every single year, and we'll go from there. You do as best as they can. I'm lucky enough to have kids that are young enough where I don't think that they know any better. As long as you throw some candy at them and you have a couple laughs and you dress up like a fool, I'm good. So
what I thought would have been a really cool thing to do, and I think would have been reasonable and safe, would have been, this is what Melina and I were going to do, and we're probably still going to do it, is set up a picnic table in your driveway. Put out prepackaged bundles of candy so that the kids don't, have to dig their hands into the bowl and stuff. Everybody wears masks. You're outside, you're distanced. I feel like that could have been a thing. I think that we could have done that in a way that it would have enabled the kids to still have the trick-or-treating experience, and it would have been completely safe. Everybody's wearing masks, you're outside, nobody's coming to people's doors, just everybody's out in the driveway with a table set up. We've got the kind of weather here in LA where that's not problematic. And I think that would have been cool. And we'll probably still do that with a few people, with the people that we know in the neighborhood that have kids. But you're right. I mean, the kids will get over it. When I was like 8 years old, I cut my hand carving a pumpkin, severed one of the tendons in my hand, had to have surgery, missed Halloween. I was in bed. I was in the hospital. Okay. Traumatic. Traumatic experience for like an 8-year-old,
Oh my God.
But at least this is different. It's not like they're actually not getting to do anything. But it is really just a weird world, man. It is just a strange world.
Yeah.
I look back to like April, and now that we're 6 months away from April, I can honestly say, and I can say without feeling too bad about it, it felt like a little bit like a vacation in April. It was kind of like, it's not our fault. Que sera, sera, man. I mean, it's we got shut down. I'm sleeping in. It was a little bit of a certainly not making light of what people were going through physically and with the disease and all of that stuff. But it felt a little bit like, what, you and I, Joe, we never take the vacations that we're supposed to. And it felt a little bit like that. But as time has gone by, it's gotten a little bit more nerve-wracking, to the point you and I were talking about this the other day, where I'm the kind of guy that doesn't really have a really active, robust social life. Like, I don't go out a lot. I'm kind of a homebody. I like that. I have a small group of friends. I like to stay home. I like to read a book. I like to hang out with my wife. I like to work in the garden, my dogs and everything. But even I'm kind of going like, I was just the other day, I'm like, I'm gonna go to Office Depot and just walk around.
That was gonna be my next. That was gonna be my next question.
It's like, I gotta go to CVS or something, man. I gotta see another human in the real setting. It's like, so I'm getting a little bit, even I'm getting a little bit starved for human contact.
Oh yeah. And listen, my kids are starting to feel it. Ava the other day, I think it was like Tuesday or Monday, comes up to me and goes, "Hey Dad, can we go on a car ride?" And I'm like, where do you want to go? And she's like, I just want to go on a car ride. And I'm like, that's what it's come down to. That's what it's come down to, is like when your little 6 or 7 year old just comes down and just goes, I just want to drive around. Just give me once around the block here.
Yeah, I get that.
Scenery.
I get that feeling. Melina and I are actually going to see my parents this weekend. We're going to be in the park. We're going to meet in the park. We're going to stay very far apart. We're going to wear masks. We're going to eat in the park. And I think that kind of a thing is perfectly okay to do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think people should be doing that as much as possible. Which actually reminds me of a note that I wanted to take for minimum effective dose. Let me do this really quickly before we start our conversation. Okay, so terrible transition, but here's where we'll transition into what we're going to talk about today. I've been having the concept of minimum effective dose on my mind lately. And minimum effective dose from a pharmaceutical perspective is basically what's the smallest amount of a compound that I can take that will produce the desired result. So, if I can take 5 milligrams of a medication and I get the desired result, there's no point in taking 7 grams or 10 grams because, you're always having to contend with potential side effects and so on and so forth. And most things are dose dependent. So minimum effective dose has been on my mind with the context of health and wellness and how we approach the various components of health and wellness in our lives, lifestyle medicine, or what you and I have always referred to as eat, move, play, eat, move, recover, play, connect, the 5 pillars of health. And the reason that minimum effective dose has been on my mind is because, we know that there is a problem in the United States and in all really industrialized nations with regard to health and wellness, the rates of cardiovascular disease, the rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cancers, osteoporosis, diabetes, you name it. These are, many of them are lifestyle related diseases. So it's problematic just kind of globally in any place that you have a society of affluence or abundance, an industrialized nation. And, I think that for a lot of people, just the concept of being well, living a healthy, well life, having a strong sense of well-being, having strong practices in these different areas is kind of overwhelming because, we're constantly being told by people like you and me, by the media, by experts and doctors and specialists that you need to be managing your health and well-being in all these different areas, in sleep and stress management and exercise and nutrition. And you're supposed to do 150 minutes of exercise a week, and you're supposed to strength train twice a week, and you're supposed to eat a number of fruits and veggies every day, and carbs, no carbs, keto, paleo, all this stuff. And it can be pretty overwhelming when you take a look at the totality of how we are supposed to be taking care of our health and our wellness when it comes to our habits. It can be overwhelming because that's just a lot of stuff. And then you get this narrative from the fitness industry, from people in our industry, and our industry, the fitness industry, makes me crazy. And I know it makes you crazy too, because you get a lot of platitudes and you get a lot of preaching and you get a lot of talking down to from these experts who are saying things like, you know, talking about beast mode and rise and grind and hustle and all this stuff. And this kind of, the context is, if you're not doing that with regard to exercise and nutrition and these things, that you're basically a loser, you know?
Right.
That you got to get up and you got to be doing 4 HIIT classes a week and all of these other things. And what we fail to realize is that single mother who's busting her ass working an important job, comes home, makes sure that her kids get fed, get their homework done. She's already in beast mode. You know, she is rising and grinding. She is hustling. And then to throw this guilt on top of her that you're not taking care of your health and your wellness, doing all of these different things, you're falling short, is a disservice to her. It's a disservice to the guy, the student that's working 2 or 3 jobs, paying their way through school. It's a disservice to all of those people. So
can I interject in that? Because I have a really, I don't know if it's a funny story or a collection of stories, but if I was going to sum up 2020 Zoom sessions, man, dude, I got to tell you, I remember it so distinctly. It was about 2 weeks ago. And this has been happening periodically throughout, especially when September hit and the fall hit, when kids started going back to school. I was teaching a Zoom session. I maybe had like 10 or 12 people in it. And four or five of the tiles had mothers training with kids in the background. One mother was sitting there, what looked like was was helping out with math homework for maybe a 10 or 12-year-old child. One mother had an what looked like a year-old baby in a high chair feeding the kid. One mother had a toddler riding around in the living room with one of those little motorized cars where she's doing a HIIT class. And this was all happening simultaneously. And I'm going, dude, if I could give you extra points for that class, I would give them to you right now. But I can't tell you how many times that moms and dads too as well. I don't want to exclude the dads because this is happening for dads too, where parents are online, they're training, they're doing the best that they can, and they're making breakfast or they're giving, they're helping out a child log on to a Zoom session simultaneously. And I have to always remind people that you are doing above and beyond what is necessary right now. And you should never feel guilty about not getting enough working out, because you are going about a mile a minute right now. And it's unbelievable. And listen, I mean, to see a mother kind of go from feeding an 8-month-old child, spoon feeding them, dropping down, doing a burpee, and then coming back up and dealing with another child is
down, up, eat.
Yeah.
Down, up, eat.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little comical, but man, applause to those women at Arena Fitness that are doing that, and to the dads that are doing that, because it's remarkable. They're putting their health up as a priority. And I firmly believe that more kids, at least at the Arena Fitness community, have been exposed to exercise in the last 6 months. And that is going to be so priceless to them growing up because of what they're seeing their parents do and what they're emulating. And I think that that's one of those things that have just been priceless for families at Arena Fitness here specifically. And I hope that that's happening in other gyms too as well, when parents are putting their exercise at such a high priority that they're not missing out their workout and they're continuing on with their life and not feeling that they need to kind of box out an hour or 45 minutes and not be interrupted. These guys are okay with being interrupted. They're okay with incorporating it into their technical life. And what you're seeing a lot of times is, if they're old enough, they're dropping down and they're doing exercises right there with them, which is great, is awesome. I applaud that. So I just wanted to kind of shoot that out there, because it's been nothing short of amazing, in my opinion, to be able to witness, because it just kind of happened organically. It just kind of, you deal with it, you adapt in this time. So it's been awesome. But go on.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. People are really modeling that behavior. right? They're modeling the behavior of self-care and exercise and eating well and all of that stuff in front of their kids. And even under normal circumstances, the lives in 21st century America are complicated and complex and difficult. And then when you throw COVID on top of it, and especially for parents who have kids at home and they're having to become teachers now, and that is unbelievable. And so, you know, shoveling more guilt on top of them for not being Johnny on the spot when it comes to managing several different components of their life when it comes to health and wellness is not helpful. You know, so for people like that, thinking of minimum effective dose for me, I've been thinking, okay, how do we just give people the smallest amount that they can do that's reasonable and realistic, but will move the needle for them and make a difference? You know, the smallest possible dose of different healthy lifestyle behaviors that will produce an effect for these people. So that's one group of people that I was thinking about are the people that are really just, you know, they're already hammering it 100% and they're trying really hard to find time and find ways to be healthy as well, but it's really challenging. And kind of the fitness narrative of beast mode is not helpful to them. So we want to come up with some ideas for these people that are realistic, where they can do a small amount but move the needle. That's one thing. There's another group of people, which are the people who generally have pretty solid practices when it comes to managing their health and wellness, but they're just going through one of those times where they're traveling for work, or they're super busy, or maybe they're just unmotivated right now and struggling, because we all go through those periods of time. And how can we keep them, just keep the ball rolling, you know, give them some really small things that they can do to keep the momentum, keep the ball moving down the field, so that when they emerge from this difficult time, they won't have, you know, lost momentum or regressed, you know, or anything like that. So minimum effective dose for that group of people too. And then the last kind of group of people are people like you and me, where, you know, you and I were talking about different things that we do, where it's like, I do this one thing as a minimum effective dose because I don't like it. You know, I don't like it, or I don't feel like doing it, or I, you know, whatever the explanation is, they're just, you know, it's like, I do very, very well in all these different areas. I don't like this area, so I'm going to find a way to get just the smallest amount that I need to done so that I can make sure that I'm representing that facet of my health and fitness. So anyway, that was a really long setup, but I think it's important to talk about kind of why we're talking about that. So I wanted to kick it off by talking about nutrition. Like, what is the minimum effective dose? Now, some of what we talk about, at least on my side of things, is really, really well researched. Really, there's a lot of evidence-based support for what I'm recommending. And then some of what I'm going to talk about is just straight up my opinion, you know, based upon what I know, what I've observed, and so on and so forth. And I'll kind of try to make sure that I'm distinguishing between what is evidence-based and what is Jonathan's opinion. You know, because
what works for you too. I think that's an important,
and what works. Exactly.
Important kind of factor, because at the end of the day, what I've discovered with minimum effective doses or any type of, you know, program that I put myself on is it's got to work for me. Like, at one point, you can't just get bogged down on the research and be like, oh, but the study says this. The study could say whatever you want. I mean, at the end of the day, if I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. So I think that's an important kind of factor and variable, and that is it's got to work for you. You know, it's got to work for you, and it's got to work for your lifestyle.
So we talked for a minute about this last week, and you mentioned to me something that you feel is the minimum effective dose when it comes to nutrition. And I kind of stopped you because I wanted this conversation to be live and fresh, so that it wasn't pre-planned. But knowing that you had said that one thing, I don't know if you remember what it was, but what is your kind of minimum effective dose when it comes to nutrition? Like, what's the one thing? If you can only do one thing, like, forget, you know, there's people get lost when it comes to nutrition because there's keto and there's paleo and there's intermittent fasting. And do I cut carbs? Do I worry about fat? Do I do this? And it becomes really, really confusing. And there's evidence for everybody's different eating pattern. Vegetarian, right, vegan, everything has some support. And so it's hard to figure out what's valid and what's not. It's hard to support what's real from what's inaccurate. So if people are overwhelmed by the totality of what they hear about nutrition, and there's just one thing, forget everything else and do one thing, what's that one thing that you would recommend?
For me, it's a solid protein shake. And I want to kind of really be careful with what I mean by protein shake is it's got to be a complete, almost like a meal shake. Not necessarily, because there are meal replacement shakes out there that are really, really high in calories. That's not exactly what I mean. What I mean is I get up in the morning, I put 2 scoops of protein in my shake, and I fill that jar with vegetables and fruits. That is my minimum effective dose, is that. And no matter what I eat or how much I drink throughout the weekends or the months or whatever it is, that is standard practice in the Garcia house. It's just everybody gets up, they have their shake, and then we get on with our day. The kids get their shake, we get our shake. I have my coffee, whatever it is, and then I go from there. Whether I'm being really strict with my nutrition or not, that's a standard practice. It's nothing that I've been doing it for years. I can't remember the last time I haven't had that as a start of the day, really. I mean, I think I've done it as long as I can remember. And that's my minimum effective dose. And that turns into a catalyst a lot of times and kind of keeps me at bay. So it's not only do I get all my branched chain amino acids and my foundational vitamins and minerals from the shake, I always make sure that I'm always going for a pharmaceutical grade protein shake and making sure the brand we use is Shaklee. And it just tends to be one of those things where I know I'm getting all my vitamins and minerals, and I'm getting it done for the day, and I've got my foundational nutrition regimen in place. Whether my macronutrient regimen is in place or not, that's kind of irrelevant. And I try not to spend too much willpower focusing on that 12 months out of the year. I have moments where I do that 30, 45 days out of the year, but I don't do that as a 12-month practice. And what's happened over the years is it really becomes natural. There's less willpower involved into trying to stay on top of a plant-based diet or anything like that. And it just becomes more natural from it. And really it's the catalyst. It's like some people have to work out on Mondays. Otherwise, if they don't get that Monday workout, then the rest of the week is just messed up for them. And that's my wife. If she needs Mondays in order to create a catalyst for the rest of the week, I need my shake in the morning in order for me to have a catalyst effect for the rest of the day. And it has been extremely successful for me over the last 20 years. And, listen, I'm a human being. I fall off, eating a really regimented diet. I love my pizza. I love my burgers. I love, going with my brother, and we go to these, I like taste testing different burger joints and stuff like that. And that can get me in trouble after a while, but I still have my shake, so it's like, I still have my shake and I still do that. So that's my minimum effective dose.
Cool. So a plant-based smoothie that has a lot of fruits and veggies in it, with
Absolutely.
a high quality protein powder from Shaklee, which is what I use as well, has a wide variety of micronutrients, and it kind of acts and branched chain amino acids acts as kind of like your catalyst for the day. In other words, it like sets the tone for the day. You have it first thing in the morning, and you know that you're having a foundational meal right off the bat that has a lot of plant-based materials in it, and it's nutrient dense, and also because it's become habitual for you, you don't have to waste a lot of willpower or mental energy coming up with that idea. You can save that for other things that require more mental cognition and mental energy. Absolutely.
Like, am I going to go after that pizza or not?
Right, because that's when you need your willpower if you're gonna use it. If you're gonna use it, so you don't want to use up all of your willpower on unnecessary things, which is a really, really good strategy. Okay, I love that, and it actually fits in really nicely with my concept of minimum effective dose when it comes to nutrition. My minimum effective dose is if there's only one thing that you can do on a daily basis. For me, that thing is 4 cups of fruits and veggies throughout the day. That's it. Forget about everything else. Don't worry about calorie counting. Don't worry about cutting carbs. Don't worry about sugar. Don't worry about any of that stuff. If you can only focus on one thing, it's 4 cups of fruits and veggies. And, you know, more specifically, like a cup and a half of fruit to 2.5 cups of veggies, because veggies tend to be a little bit more nutrient dense and a little bit lower when it comes to calorie count. And the reason that that would be the foundational practice, like the minimum effective dose, the one thing that you focus on, is we know that 9 out of 10 Americans do not take in the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables a day.
No.
So what's left? What's left? If you're not eating fruits and vegetables, what's left? Like processed foods, animal products, right?
Right. Right.
So processed foods and animal products do not have the nutrient density that you need and that you get from plants. Some types of animal products are really nutrient dense, but the kinds of products that we eat in the United States when it comes to animal products are the least nutrient dense parts of the animal. You and I are going to talk about plant-based eating next week, and we'll kind of elaborate on that. So if 90% of Americans are not taking in the recommended amount of fruits and veggies, and they're taking most of what they eat in processed foods and animal products, then you are nutrient deficient, plain and simple. There's no way around it. And so by taking in 4 cups of fruits and veggies, and the reason I chose 4 is because the recommendations are usually like a cup and a half to 2 cups of fruit per day, 2 to 3 cups of veggies. So I kind of put it right in the middle there.
Yeah.
So this is science-based, and this is backed up by research, and the experts do recommend this. 4 cups fits pretty much right in the middle of those recommendations. So what you're going to do if you take in 4 cups of fruits and veggies a day is you're going to expose yourself to a much greater variety and density of nutrients. So micronutrients, polyphenols, phytonutrients, phytochemicals, antioxidants, all of these good nutrients that you're missing out, you're going to give your body the nutrition that it needs to be healthy. That's number 1. Number 2, you're going to be getting a ton of fiber. Fiber is going to be super important as far as gut health, digestion, you know, motility, staying regular, blood sugar, cholesterol regulation. So you're going to get a ton of fiber, which you're not going to get from processed foods or from animal products. And so that's going to be really good. Also, because it's plant material, it's got a higher volume. It's nutrient dense, but it's really light on calories. So when you eat a lot of plants, the volume and the mass of those plants fill up your stomach. And when it fills up your stomach, it activates those stretch receptors in your stomach that signals your brain that you're full. You're not going to get that when you're not eating plants, because if you're eating calorie dense foods like processed foods and animal products, it's only going to be a little bit as far as the mass and volume of the food. It's going to sit in your stomach, just a small amount, and it won't activate the stretch receptors. And so you're going to have a tendency to overeat. But when you eat a lot of plants, the volume, just the mass of that food will stretch your stomach out and send a message to your brain that you're full. Some other advantages to that would be hydration. I mean, you can get up to 20% of the hydration that you need per day from plants, from the food that you eat. You're not going to get any of that in processed foods. Processed foods can't have water in them, otherwise they'll go bad, you know, on the shelves. And the other thing is that it will, you know, if you're eating a lot of the plant-based foods, it might kind of just unintentionally crowd out the bad stuff that you're eating or the unhealthy stuff that you're eating, you know, the processed foods and the animal products. So those are the benefits to taking in 4 cups of plants per day. And so I would recommend that as the minimum effective dose. And real quickly, before you say something, what's great about that is that your smoothie fits right into my plan, because what I do for breakfast, for example, is I cut up a whole bunch of different mixed veggies at the beginning of the week. I put a cup and a half of lightly sauteed veggies in with my eggs in the morning. That's a cup and a half of veggies and like a half a cup of fruit. And then later on for lunch, I have a smoothie. And in that smoothie, I have Shaklee protein, or the Shaklee protein powder. I have about a cup of mixed greens and probably a cup of mixed blueberries and banana. So that's another cup of fruit. That's another cup of veggies. I've already hit my 4 cups of plants for the day, and it's noon. So everything beyond that is going to be gravy. And I've already hit my minimum effective dose. So that's kind of my rationale. So yours dovetails with mine.
Yeah. And I just kind of want to add to that so that people understand, why is it so important for us not to be in a position of being nutrient deficient? Why does that even matter?
Because it makes your body more susceptible to disease. Certain functions of the body have to be initiated by certain compounds in the body. If you take a look at magnesium, for example, which most of us, or many of us, I think it's 58% of Americans are deficient in magnesium. Magnesium is involved in 300 processes in the body. If you don't take magnesium, if you don't get enough magnesium, and you can get it from your food, you are shortchanging your body's ability to perform 300 different biological functions. And that's just one micronutrient we're talking about.
Yeah.
So
I think that that's an important kind of just thing to touch on, because I don't think enough people realize how important it is to get in a good micronutrient foundation, and the reasons why it is so detrimental, even for somebody as young and beautiful as myself, to take something as simple as a multivitamin every day. Right?
Yes. So that was my next question is, do you have like an MED when it comes to supplementation?
Absolutely. It's a multivitamin. I take a multivitamin every single day with my shake, and that is my minimum effective dose. When I'm training towards something, I have a body composition goal. I'll add things like omega-3s. I'll add things like B complexes. I'll add things like a good probiotic into the regimen. But my minimum effective dose year round is always that multivitamin. And listen, I've taken it, I think, all my life. I think that was something that my mom kind of beat up, and my parents kind of beat up into my psyche, which is, you got to take your vitamins and minerals. This is what's going to keep you healthy and running. You can eat vegetables, and that's great, but you got to have a foundation. You got to have a foundation, and you just won't be able to consume as many of the fruits and vegetables that we're talking about to be able to fill those gaps. You just can't have the variety in your diet. And most of us, that maybe for cultural reasons, maybe for accessibility reasons, maybe because it's a personal preference. I don't like broccoli. I don't get the nutrients that broccoli provides that is important, because I just don't like it, so I gravitate towards other vegetables, which I think is pretty common for most people. I think that you have like your personal preferences as far as what you like and what you dislike. So that's when it comes to supplementation, my minimum effective dose is going to be a multivitamin, and it always has been. I mean, I got to tell you, in a lot of respects, it's almost my maximum effective dose, because when it comes to supplementation, you've got your nutrition kind of vitamin and minerals kind of regimen type of supplements, and then you've got your performance supplements. Your performance supplements, I've never been an advocate of. That's like your no explodes and your testosterone boosters and your creatine. Creatine actually has slid more to the other side of the spectrum now, with a lot of research studies coming out saying how important it is to actually take in creatine monophosphate. But that's another discussion. But for the most part, for a lot of reasons, I try to keep my supplementation pretty simple. Like it's not too extravagant. But yeah, I just wanted to add to that, because I think, when we talk about eating all these nutriently dense foods like fruits and vegetables, and why we keep those in the category of minimum effective dose, is because that's the most important That's what's going to keep us moving our operating in a way where we're going to be fighting off disease at an optimal level. You take that away and you're going to expose yourself to a multitude of diseases that you shouldn't have never had to deal with in your life. Never. Like it was avoidable, completely avoidable, just because you didn't do the minimum effective dosage as far as what your body required in order to fight these diseases. You literally just chopped it off at the knees. And then you're going to, I mean, we live in the United States of America. You've got our wonderful medical system that we hear about all the time. That's going to take care of you. Good luck. Good luck with that. And that's if you can afford medical insurance.
Yeah, and I would add to that, because I think what you're saying is right on, is not just the nutrients that we're taking from the plants, but also it creates an anti-inflammatory environment in our body. And we know that inflammation is suspected to be at the root of many of the chronic diseases that we deal with. And a lot of, first of all, processed foods are going to be pro-inflammatory. And so you're absolutely right about that. And I'm glad you mentioned the supplementation. I put some things into my shake, my smoothie, like camu, which is an antioxidant. And sometimes I'll put medicinal mushrooms like lion's mane and stuff like that. I put turmeric and pepper and coconut oil. But really, when you're talking about supplementation, I agree with you when it comes to the multivitamin. I'm a little bit different from you on the minimum effective dose, though, because so many people struggle with the regularity of taking something on a daily basis. A lot of people struggle with that. My minimum effective dose would be a multivitamin at least every 2 to 3 days. So even if you can't get into the habit of taking one every single day, which would be optimal, then the minimum effective dose for me is every 2 to 3 days at least, so that you're providing some support for the the nutrient gaps that you were mentioning, because it is going to be hard for us to get all of the nutrients that we need from our food for a variety of reasons, which is that would be a different conversation. But I love what you're saying. I totally agree. The only difference would be, at least if you can get that multivitamin in every 2 to 3 days, I think that's good. Let's talk about water intake. What do you think is, or do you have a take on minimum effective dose when it comes to water intake?
Yes. And I have it in two aspects of my life. One is general. 64 ounces is kind of like my minimum, which I have my water bottle over here, but
this looks like coffee, but this isn't. This is actually water.
Yeah. So if mine's a little bit bigger than that, I make sure that I just drink 3 of those a day. When I'm training, it's probably double than that. I could probably take one of those down just in one training session. But yeah, like it's 3 of those a day. That's my water kind of minimum. The second half to that is whenever I choose to drink, which is generally on the weekends, I make it a point to drink a glass of water every other drink. That's kind of like my minimum effective dose when it comes to alcohol consumption.
So you spend the entire party in the bathroom. Because if you're drinking and then you're drinking a drink to chase the drink, then do you just wear a catheter to parties then? I'm confused.
I'm running around a lot. Yes. And listen, that's primarily the reason why any type of place that I go to now needs to be within, running distance of my house or something, because I'm going straight to the bathroom.
I don't know if I told you this story, but Melina and I drove up to Morro Bay a few weeks back to stay at a friend's house for the weekend. And, a lot of places aren't open. Like, there aren't public bathrooms. So there was a rest stop halfway up. It's about a 3.5 hour to 4 hour drive. So we mapped it out. On the way up, we'll go. We got our Starbucks at the beginning. Halfway up, we stopped. We went to the bathroom. We drove the other half. We were good to go. We drove back on Monday, We're in the car. We got our Starbucks. I Google the rest stop to see how far it is. Closed.
Oh.
And I'm like, we're like panicking. I'm like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. And like, no place is open. We went to gas stations. They wouldn't let you use the bathroom. We ended up having to go to a Target in Santa Barbara. Anyway, that was a little off track, but
you paid the guy $20. I got it.
Exactly. I mean, that's another like consequence of COVID is like, you got to map out where you're going to pee if you're out of the house for a while. All right. So on the issue of water intake, first of all, it's one of my weaker areas of my health and wellness. I probably don't drink as much water as I should. You can get up to 20% of your daily intake from fruits and veggies and from things that are not strictly water, like even juices and coffee and tea. Okay, that's what the rule is now. What the experts say is that it's okay to get up to 20% of your daily intake from these other types of drinks, as well as fruits and veggies. But according to the U.S. National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, they recommend 15.5 cups per day for men, which is 3.7 liters. That sounds like a lot. And 11.5 cups, which is 2.7 liters a day for women. Both of those sound like a lot to me. And it will vary according to your lifestyle and your body size and your physical activity and your weather and all kinds of things. So for me, my minimum effective dose is really, really simple. Drink as much as you need to drink so that you're peeing clear or light yellow all day. That's it.
That's it. That's exactly the barometer that I use. If I come out looking like it's like orange, like the sun,
chicken broth, chicken broth,
that's a problem.
That is a problem. Yeah. So that's my minimum effective dose for that. All right, now let's talk about exercise.
Yeah.
Minimum effective dose for exercise, and I'll lead on this one. So this is another one where it's like, the recommended amount is 75 minutes of vigorous activity per week or 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week. I have a personal stake in this because I don't like strength training. And I think I'm kind of in the minority on that. I feel like a lot of people enjoy strength training and I'm kind of not normal when it comes to that. I would prefer to do, interval training, body weight training, boxing, running, that kind of stuff. But I value strength training and I know that I need to do it. And I know that biologically I need to do it. And I also need to do it because you have been reminding me for 17 years that I'm not the most muscular fellow in the world. And if I don't do strength training, I just become nothing but I look like a Q-tip, like a giant head and like no body.
My concern has always been around the fact that I don't think you understand what sleeves are supposed to be doing on the human arm.
I know, man. I got chicken sticks. What can I say?
They're not supposed to be flapping in the wind like that.
I listen, I get it. And that's why I have to do strength training, even though to me, it's just super, super boring. So what is the minimum effective dose? I think this is really, really interesting because what it turns out, and this is research-based, it turns out that studies show that one set of 6 to 12 reps to failure twice a week is enough to promote suboptimal but significant strength gains. So if you're doing one set 2 times a week, 6 to 12 reps to failure, you can get stronger. So, and then there's also like the American College of Sports Medicine recommends 2 times a week, just non-consecutive days, 1 set of exercises per muscle group, 2 times a week, 6 to 12 reps. That's American College of Sports Medicine. So that's pretty easy. That's pretty easy to do. Also for osteoporosis, 2 times a week of strength training seems to be the minimum effective dose. So actually what the research shows is 2 to 3 times a week one set, 6 to 12 reps. So for me, my take is that the minimum effective dose when it comes to strength training is to do one set of each muscle group. I'm not a big fan of the concept of body part training, but if you're going to do this kind of training, this is what you would do. This is what I do sometimes because I know that I need to get it in and I don't really want to do it, is I do one set of 6 to 12 reps to failure of chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, squats, deadlifts, and I should do calf raises because you've seen my legs. But I just think calf raises are stupid. But if
John,
so,
you need to walk around on your toes all the time.
all day long, all day long. I know. There's no hope for my getaway sticks, man. So that would be 8 sets. 8 sets. Chest, back, shoulders, arms, squats, deadlifts, calf raises. 8 sets, 6 to 12 reps to failure, twice a week. That'll take 10 minutes, 2 times a week. So you're talking about minimum effective dose being 20 minutes per week, divided into 2 workouts, 8 exercises per workout, probably about 10 minutes total. So that's a great thing that you could combine with something else. You could just do that on its own, and that would be great. So if you're looking for, God, I'm really struggling with time. I don't know what to do. I know I need to do strength training. I've got this set of adjustable dumbbells. What can I do? Well, the answer is, based upon the research, you can do one set, 6 to 12 reps to failure twice a week. So that's my minimum effective dose when it comes to strength training.
Yeah, yours is actually, I keep it super simple. And I've got kind of these 3 go-tos that I do depending on how, again, where my training is at. Am I training 5-6 days a week? Am I training twice a week? Do I feel myself falling off? And when I feel myself falling off, I have this kind of rule of thumb where on my off days, I do one of 3 things: a 2-minute plank, solid 2-minute plank, 50 push-ups. And sometimes what I do is I break that up. I don't do 50 altogether, especially if I'm just starting to do that routine. Or I do 100 swings. And the way I do 100 swings is just 10 swings on the minute, every minute for 10 minutes. So it takes me about 10 minutes. It's about 15 seconds of work where it just targets the whole body and 45 seconds of rest. It's doable. I do 10 swings. I go do something, come back to it. I set my timer. It's 10 minutes of work and I'm done. That is my off day routine. And my minimum effective dose. I generally gravitate towards the swings because it's a no-brainer and it hits everything that I need to hit. I get a little bit of a cardio going and it sets the tone, really. I mean, and that's my off day minimum effective dose. And it's kept me from falling completely apart. And I've been doing it for a long time where it's just like that is it. Sometimes it's all 3. Then that's generally what it turns into is I'll probably do a week or so of off day swings or something like that. And then I start to feel good again. And I'm like, I want to do a little bit more. I want to do a little bit more. And then I no longer have an off day. I'm just working out 4 or 5 days a week. And that's kind of what's important about these minimum effective dose strategies is, I believe that these minimum effective doses are not meant to just keep you at this bottom kind of low idling. It's more of a trampoline, right? Like if you feel yourself sliding down the hill, but you've got these minimum effective dose practices and strategies in place, you're going to bounce right back. You're going to bounce right back up to the activity level that you need or want in order to get whatever you want to get out of when it comes to being health and staying fit and receiving any type of body composition changes that's generally what it feels like to me. It's more of a trampoline than anything else. It's like, I'll do 10 swings on the minute, every minute for 10 minutes. And I'll do that for maybe a week before I start adding things. And I'm like, oh, I want to do more. So it's not a very long period of time that I do it, but that is kind of one of those it's a standard. It's a standard. And I refuse to tell myself something and then fall short on coming through to when it comes to what I promised I was going to do to myself. And that's kind of, I don't want to get into it right now, but I got to tell you that I wanted to kind of end on that, which we can kind of dovetail back and we can kind of talk about building your own self-confidence in being able to achieve these minimum effective doses and strategies is really, really important, because if you're setting up these minimum effective doses and you're not following through, that can go the other way. That can start to erode the trust you have within yourself to be able to complete something. How many times have people come to us and been like, I just don't think I can ever get to the point where I can lose 20 pounds. Or I don't think that I can ever get to the point where I can do a pull-up or a push-up. And that, for me, being in the fitness industry for 20 years, doesn't ever come necessarily something from a lack of physical ability, as it does more so of a lack of mental strength. And what has happened to that person is you have told yourself that you're going to do something and you've lied to yourself because you didn't follow through. And maybe that little thing was something small, like, I'm going to get up tomorrow morning and I'm going to go on a run. And then that morning comes and you hit snooze and you're like, I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm too tired today. Yeah. You just lied to yourself. You just eroded a little bit of trust away from your own self-confidence in being able to achieve something. Now you extrapolate that day after day, activity after activity, even if it's in your financial life, I'm going to, or vacationing, or reading a book, or, meeting up somebody with lunch, and you start to erode that, all these minimum effective dose strategies that we're talking about are just going to add to that. And that's kind of like the underlying problem that you need to address, is when you establish a minimum effective dose strategy and you put it in place, you need to understand how detrimental it is for you to follow through when it comes to how you look at yourself when you're trying to accomplish a challenge, when you're trying to actually achieve something in your life. Because if something is as little as, let's take 8 ounces of water every single day, and I'm going to have 8 ounces of water with every single meal that I have today, and I follow through with that. Each time you do that, you build a little bit more trust and confidence in being able to accomplish that. That little minimum effective dose strategy will eventually help you when you decide one day, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds, because you have built up that self-confidence to be able to achieve something. And now you trust yourself enough where you go, I'm ready to do this. And we've seen it. How many times have you seen it when somebody comes to you and they have like that eye of the tiger type look, and they're like, no, I'm ready. I know I've done this in the past. I've done a couple different changes in my life recently where I've gotten to this point, and now I feel like I can accomplish this. Well, that person has probably put in a couple minimum effective dose strategies in their life, whether they did it subconsciously or consciously, and they've built up that trust within themselves to have the self-confidence to be able to go after something bigger. And that's kind of, I didn't want to jump ahead or anything like that, but that's what we're talking about. These minimum effective doses is not only to make sure that that you always have that trampoline in place to bounce back and get back on the wagon, but also that you're using these minimum effective doses as little stepping stones towards building up the trust bank that you have with yourself and the self-confidence to be able to tackle something bigger, something a little bit more meaningful to you. And I think that's huge, when you really start to kind of peel back the layers as far as, well, why is minimum effective dosing even something that's necessary? Like, when I'm off, I'm off. Well, That's why, if you ever want to get to another place in your life, whether it's physically, mentally, or whatever it is, you need to start to put in practices and strategies that build up trust with your own self. Because if you're sitting there going, I'm going to go on a run, and tomorrow morning comes and you don't do it, at the moment it may not seem like a big deal, but in the bigger scheme of things, you don't trust yourself. That's the behavior that you're building, is you are eroding away the trust that you have with yourself. And if you're somebody that doesn't trust yourself, and I don't want to get too deep into this because this stems into relationships that you have in your life, how do you trust anybody else? How do you trust any information? How do you trust anything if you don't trust what you say comes out of your mouth when it comes to when you're talking to yourself? And that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah. So everything you just said there, the whole starting from the beginning was great, and kind of circling back and kind of making sure that I'm hearing everything that you're saying correctly. You first started out by saying kind of your minimum effective dose is either a 2-minute plank, 50 push-ups, or 100 kettlebell swings, 10 on the minute, 10 each minute for 10 minutes, or a combination of those three, but any one of those at least.
Yeah.
And then went on to talk about how important these minimum effective doses are because they are realistic, they're achievable, and you're not setting the bar so high and trying to change your behavior so radically in a short period of time that you're setting yourself up for failure. Because if you do that often enough, set the bar too high and then fail, you're teaching yourself that you're a failure. You're teaching yourself that you are incapable of making the change. Whereas if you set these small minimum effective doses, which are reasonable and achievable and small enough too small to fail, really, then by continually being able to set up these minimum effective doses and achieve them day after day after day, you're gaining the confidence in your ability to do these things, and confidence just begins to snowball and build and build and build so that you can take on bigger and bigger challenges. Am I hearing you correctly?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
One of the reasons I bring that up is because, listen, I've set goals up for myself, even the 50 push-ups. That's small enough for me to actually fail. Like, I actually believe that you can set so small of a goal that you're going to sell yourself short just as much as you would if it was high. Like, there's almost, for me personally, there's almost no difference. The reason I attach this underlying kind of thing, set it high enough where you're not going to lie to yourself, because this over here, if you really understand what you're doing when you miss out on this minimum effective dose, it is going to be so detrimental to you and so much more damaging to you than if you were to skip it out. And that's kind of the reason I bring that up, is there's got to be an engine behind all of this, right? Like, what's driving you to complete the minimum effective dose? And when I started to attach that, or I started to understand what I was actually doing when I skipped out on my 100 swings, then I stopped skipping out on my 100 swings. It was not okay for me to skip out on my 100 swings. And I think that's the other piece to this, right? You can't just set up minimum effective doses and then not really sit down and understand how important it is for you to meet that. You know, especially after you said, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. And when you put it in that light, for me, 50 push-ups, I'm not going to skip out on it because I don't want to lie to myself. I don't want to erode at the trust that I have with myself, because what happens if one day I want to sit up and I go, hey, John, let's go open up a clinic gym and let's go do 3 and let's really bang that out. How am I going to trust myself to do that when I'm lying to myself about doing 50 push-ups on my off day training? Right? That's the level of importance that I'm placing on my my minimum effective dose is when I place these strategies in place. It's like, you got to look at the big picture here as far as what's going to happen if you start to lie to yourself about what you're going to do.
Yeah. And, you know, earlier I was saying that some of what we're talking about is science-based and some of it is opinion. What you're saying is science-based, because everything that you're describing there has to do with the theory of self-efficacy and self-determination theory. And it just plain and simple does. And the rule of thumb, it fits well within those psychological theories. And the rule of thumb is the dose has to be just a little challenging. It has to be just a little challenging. If it's beyond the scope of challenge for you, if it's too easy, you won't do it. If it's too hard, you won't do it. So what you're looking for is the Goldilocks level, is really,
Right.
it's just a little bit challenging. And then the concept of self-efficacy is being able to repeat something over and over and over. And it shows you and demonstrates to you that you're capable of doing something, and your confidence builds. And that is the entire kind of foundational principle when it comes to self-efficacy. And when it comes to self-determination theory, that's the part that deals with competency. Competency is the process of proving to yourself that you're capable of doing something time and time again. So what you just said, everything that you just said right there, may be stuff that we've seen in our lives and in our work, and that we've witnessed, and that for us is kind of instinctive, and it just, yes, it makes sense. But the reality is that there is a bundle of research-based theory that supports everything that you just said. And that is why the minimum effective dose is important, because you are achieving, you're maintaining momentum, you're proving to yourself that you're capable. And in doing so, you're building that confidence. And confidence, plain and simple, breeds confidence. So that's why the minimum effective dose is important. We should probably end pretty much there. I have several other categories that we can talk about in the future. I want to talk about cardio in particular, and then walking. Cardio, walking, mobility, sleep, and stress. So maybe we'll tackle those things in another phone call, because we're already kind of up at time. But just to kind of recap, minimum effective dose when it comes to nutrition from you, Joe, is a plant-based smoothie every day that gives you a wide variety of micronutrients, good quality protein, branched chain amino acids. My minimum effective dose when it comes to nutrition is, if you do nothing, make sure that you take in 4 cups of fruits and vegetables a day. 1.5 cups of fruit, 2.5 cups of veggies, but we're splitting hairs. It doesn't really matter how much of each. Just make sure you get 4 cups of veggies. When it comes to strength training, my minimum effective dose is 1 set of each muscle group, 6 to 12 reps to failure, 2 times a week. It'll be about 10 minutes each time. So that's maybe 20 minutes per week, minimum effective dose for strength training. Your minimum effective dose when it comes to exercise is 2-minute plank, or 50 push-ups, or 100 kettlebell swings, 10 per minute for 10 minutes. Minimum effective dose for water for both of us, for the most part, is drink as much as you need to so that your pee is either clear or light yellow. And the reason that you want to keep these MEDs going is because it enables you to keep the ball, marching the ball down the field, building that self-efficacy, building that confidence, doing the least that you have to do to produce an effect, so that there's always something that you can do to be improving your health and your wellness. And we'll talk about the other things at another time.
Yep. Solid talk, man. I love it. I love it.
Right on. So next week, we're talking plant-based, right? We're going to talk about the benefits of...
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think we should talk about the benefits of plant-based eating, the any sort of controversies around plant-based eating, and kind of what is plant-based eating? What's everybody's definition of plant-based eating? Because we're going to be heading into our annual veggie challenge starting at the end of the month, right? On Halloween or the day after.
Yeah,
So
I think I got to check the dates on it, but the day after, we usually conclude it on Thanksgiving Day. And I'm actually excited about it. I remember last year's Veggie Challenge. Everybody had a great time with it.
man,
And I had some,
people were, yeah, it was great.
it was great. And I had some great results with it myself. So I'm ready for it. And I told my wife, I was like, man, I'm ready for this Veggie Challenge this year. Like, I'm excited about it. So it's going to be fun. It's going to
All
be
right,
fun.
man. Good talk. Good talk.
All right. All right, brother. Great talk, man. As always,
I will
have a good
see
day.
you later. Yep, you too.
All right.